In the quiet hours of a late October night, fragments of intercepted communication drifted through the digital corridors, an encrypted snippet, barely audible, yet unmistakably urgent. The message was clear. Someone was watching. Someone new. If you've ever seen a case like this, leave a trace in the comments. Sometimes, one forgotten memory changes everything. This is the story of what happened in the small town of Millersfield, nestled along the fated stretch of Route 66 in Oklahoma, where the ordinary blurred into the extraordinary with a single act of calculated violence. It begins on a day marked by the promise of closure, the day of the divorce hearing that was supposed to settle decades of unspoken tension. Instead, it became the day everything changed. Michael Lawson, a man in his early 40s, was a fixture in Millersfield's community. Known as a hard-working mechanic at the local garage on Main Street, he was seen by many as a reliable, even-tempered individual. His wife, Karen Whitmore, was equally familiar, a schoolteacher at Millersfield Elementary, often involved in charity drives and community events. They appeared, on the surface, to be an average American couple, caught in the slow grind of small-town life. But appearances never told the full story. The divorce proceedings had begun months earlier, initiated by Karen after years of quiet suffering. Behind her composed exterior was a woman increasingly isolated, her trust eroded by years of subtle coercion and private disagreements. In the weeks leading to the trial, she kept a small creased letter tucked in her purse, a letter she would later leave behind, hidden beneath the clutter of her kitchen drawer. Its words, simple yet loaded, hinted at secrets she dared not voice aloud. On the morning of the scheduled hearing, local court officials gathered in the modest courthouse on Main Street. It was a routine day. Clerks' notes, hurried whispers, the shuffle of papers. But just as the proceedings commenced, a disturbance erupted. Karen Whitmore, in her courtroom chair, suddenly vanished from sight. Witnesses later described a flash of movement, a figure slipping past security, a shadow darting through the crowded hall. What they found next changed everything. Karen's disappearance was not accidental. It was orchestrated with meticulous precision. Witnesses reported seeing a man matching Michael Lawson's description moments before her vanishing act. A quick glance, a hurried whisper, then silence. The police were called, but by the time officers arrived, the courtroom was already empty. The investigation quickly revealed that Karen had been forcibly taken. Her car was found abandoned in a nearby parking lot. An old diner named the Rusty Spur on the outskirts of town, a place known for quiet conversations and discreet meetings. Inside, investigators discovered a torn piece of fabric that matched the sleeve of Michael's jacket. Surveillance footage from the diner's parking lot showed a figure entering a dark sedan, an unmistakable vehicle registered to Michael Lawson. But that was only the beginning. From this moment on, no one was safe. The pursuit spanned hours, with law enforcement officials from Millersfield Sheriff's Office, aided by state authorities, tracking the suspect's movements across county lines. An internal operation codenamed Silent Horizon was activated, an effort to uncover the network of covert contacts and shadow transfers that had facilitated Karen's abduction. The chase wound through rural backroads, past abandoned textile mills, and along the desolate stretches of Highway 66. Witnesses along the route reported seeing the suspect's vehicle weaving dangerously between the trucks and caravans, always just out of reach of the flashing lights. Every turn was calculated, each move deliberate, like a predator scenting the wind for signs of pursuit. And this is where things get strange. As investigators pieced together the timeline, they uncovered something unsettling. Michael Lawson's history was not what it seemed. Publicly, he was a dedicated family man. Privately, his financial records indicated a series of shadow transfers, large sums of money moving discreetly through shell companies and offshore accounts. Local sources hinted that Michael was involved in more than just petty theft. Hints of coercive leverage, private agreements, and clandestine meetings in motel parking lots emerged, all concealed behind the veneer of small-town respectability. Would you have trusted them? The sheriff's office, the local community, the very system that was supposed to protect? How thin was that veneer? Meanwhile, Karen's trail grew colder. The last confirmed sighting placed her in the back seat of the sedan, a dark silhouette against the glow of the dashboard lights. Yet, strange anomalies appeared in the evidence. An unmarked GPS device found hidden in the vehicle's trunk, and a series of coded messages exchanged in the days before her disappearance. These messages, decoded later, revealed a complex web of private agreements, possibly involving quiet transfers of assets or even personal leverage held over certain individuals. From this moment, no one was entirely certain who was in control. The police had a suspect, but the story was layered with contradictions. Was Michael acting alone? Or was this a coordinated effort, perhaps even orchestrated from higher up? The local sheriff's department, led by Sheriff David Harris, knew that beneath the surface of Millersfield's quiet facade, something far darker was unfolding. Then came the betrayal. A whistleblower within the sheriff's office leaked information to a regional journalist, revealing a clandestine meeting held in a motel on the edge of town, a gathering involving individuals with questionable ties to law enforcement and organized elements. The story gained traction, but it was quickly suppressed. Evidence disappeared, and witnesses recanted. The internal investigation was shut down before it could reveal the full extent of the operation. And this is where the plan started to fall apart. In the chaos, an unexpected witness, a young boy whose family lived near the courthouse, came forward with a drawing. It depicted a figure holding a woman's hand, running away from a building that resembled the courthouse. The boy's mother, a diner waitress, remembered seeing a man matching Michael's description the night before, loitering near the town square, watching the courthouse with an unsettling focus. The last page of this file changes everything, but you'll see it in a moment. As the days passed, the investigation faced mounting pressure. The suspect's vehicle was found abandoned in a remote area outside town, near an old textile mill that had long been shuttered. Inside, investigators discovered a series of photographs, images of Karen, alive but restrained, her face partially obscured. The photographs were taken in a makeshift hideout, revealing that her kidnapping was not impulsive but planned, executed with cold, calculated intent. What they found next changed everything. A hidden compartment in the mill contained a cache of documents, coded files, bank statements, and a series of letters. One letter, in particular, caught the attention of the authorities. It was addressed to Michael, dated just days before the abduction. Its words hinted at a final transaction, a discreet handoff, and a warning. If you fail, everything is lost. But there was one detail no one talked about. The documents also hinted at an internal network, contacts within law enforcement, local officials, even members of the town's social clubs, all involved in what appeared to be a covert operation. The operation's internal code name was Operation Crossroads, a reference that seemed innocuous on the surface but concealed a far more sinister purpose. As the investigation unraveled, rumors of a discreet agreement spread among the townspeople, whispers of deals made in back rooms, of favors exchanged for silence. The town's veneer of innocence cracked, revealing a tangled web of secrets, lies, and unspoken alliances. Would you have guessed that the quiet town of Millersfield harbored such darkness? What would you have done then? In the end, arrests were made. Michael Lawson was detained at a roadside motel, attempting to flee across state lines. Karen was rescued weeks later, her story a fragment of resilience amid the shadows. Yet, even as the courts processed the case, questions lingered. Who truly orchestrated the kidnapping? Was Michael a pawn or a mastermind? And what of the internal network, the unseen hands that had manipulated events from behind the curtain? They tried to hide this detail, but it was already too late. The final piece of the puzzle remains concealed in the dustiest corner of the sheriff's office archives, a faded, crumpled piece of paper with a single phrase written in hurried script. The true target was never her. You've heard it now. You can't unhear it. What would you have done? Would you have trusted the system, or would you have looked deeper beyond the surface of what is presented as truth? Subscribe before this one disappears. The small town of Millersfield had been forever altered by the events of that October day, yet beneath the surface, the quiet whispers persisted. The investigation had formally concluded, official records sealed, but the undercurrents of suspicion, of hidden truths, continued to ripple through the community like an unspoken tide. The local newspaper, the Millersfield Gazette, published a brief report detailing the arrest of Michael Lawson and the rescue of Karen Whitmore. The headline read, "Man charged in abduction case, victim safe." But beneath that sanitized summary lay a network of coded references, a series of details omitted from the public record. The story was a veneer, a carefully crafted cover-up that masked the deeper, more disturbing reality. In the days that followed, Anonymous tips flooded into the sheriff's department. An untraceable call suggested that Michael's arrest was just the tip of the iceberg, an operation that had been ongoing for years, involving more than just a single kidnapping. Whispers of discreet transfers, shadow deals, and internal collusion grew louder among the townspeople, many of whom carried their own secrets and doubts. One such secret belonged to Sheriff David Harris himself. Known as a steadfast figure, a man who had served Millersfield for over 2 decades, Harris found himself at a crossroads. His badge, once a symbol of unwavering authority, now felt like a weight pressing down on him. Rumors circulated that he had been part of the operation, or at least aware of its scope. Yet he maintained a carefully guarded silence, his official statements meticulously crafted to quell suspicion. Meanwhile, Karen Whitmore's recovery was not the triumphant story the authorities wished to tell. She was placed in a secure facility under heavy guard, her trauma masked by a veneer of professionalism and silence. Her family, an old farmstead outside town, refused to speak publicly, and her closest friends were advised to keep their distance. The truth was too dangerous, too volatile. But some truths refused to stay buried. In a dimly lit corner of the sheriff's office, a faded photograph surfaced, a snapshot of a young girl, smiling with innocence, taped to the wall beside a bulletin board cluttered with notes and maps. It was Karen's daughter, Emily, no older than 9, holding a crayon drawing of a house with a smiling sun. Her innocence was a stark contrast to the darkness that had enveloped her mother's life. Would you have trusted the people you thought knew everything? Or would you have questioned what they kept hidden? Yet, the most unsettling element of this story remained elusive: an internal code, a secret message, buried within official documents, revealed only when the files were decrypted by an unknown entity. It pointed to a clandestine operation that went far beyond individual motives, hinting at a larger systemic effort to manipulate events, control information, and maintain silence at all costs. The files contained a phrase, Operation Crossroads, Phase 2, paired with a cryptic notation. The target was never her alone. That phrase haunted investigators and insiders alike. The implication was chilling. The kidnapping was merely a distraction, a smokescreen designed to cover something far more significant. And then, the unthinkable happened. A second whistleblower emerged, this time from within the sheriff's department. An anonymous message left at a remote safe house detailed a meeting that had taken place months earlier, a secret gathering involving law enforcement, local officials, and unidentified outsiders. It referenced the final transfer, the agreed-upon sacrifice, and warned that the truth will surface when the time is right. This revelation sent shockwaves through the remaining ranks of the department. Some officers began to question their roles, others disappeared quietly, their retirements hastened, or their careers abruptly ended. The town's fabric of trust was unraveling, and yet, amid the chaos, a question persisted. What was the real purpose behind the kidnapping? Was Karen Whitmore simply a victim caught in an intricate web of deception, or was she a pawn in a larger game? Something darker, something more insidious? The trail led investigators back to the old textile mill, now abandoned and overgrown. Inside, they found evidence of ongoing covert activities, coded messages scrawled on walls, hidden compartments filled with documents, and photographs that showed the same woman, restrained but alive, in different locations over several months. It was as if her kidnapping was part of a larger pattern, a series of discrete transfers, moving her from one shadowed site to another. One particular photograph stood out. It showed Karen in a makeshift room, her face gaunt, her eyes staring into the camera with a mixture of fear and defiance. The image was taken from a concealed camera, perhaps placed by someone close to her, someone who had tried to document the truth. The most chilling aspect of this discovery was the presence of a coded message scrawled in red ink beneath the photo. The real target is still out there. Would you have recognized the signs? Could you have seen the pattern in the chaos? As months passed, the investigation stalled. Key witnesses recanted their statements. Evidence vanished without explanation. The internal network, what some called the hidden hand, remained largely intact, its members protected by layers of secrecy and complicity. The town of Millersfield, once a peaceful community, was now a silent witness to a conspiracy that threatened to unravel everything. In the quiet corners of the Sheriff's office, a single, unassuming file sat untouched, the final, incomplete record of the operation. It contained a single page, a fragment of a larger puzzle, a list of names, some crossed out, some highlighted. Among them was a name that had not appeared publicly before: Eleanor Grant. Who was Eleanor Grant? No official records linked her to the case, but her name appeared repeatedly in the encrypted files alongside references to the architect, the liaison, and the keeper of secrets. It was as if she held the key to understanding the entire operation, the true purpose behind the kidnapping, the real power behind the scenes. And now, the question remains, what is the significance of Eleanor Grant? Did she orchestrate the entire event, or was she merely a messenger, a conduit for something far greater? The final, unanswered question lingers. Why was Karen Whitmore targeted? Was it simply for her safety, her silence, or was she a piece on a much larger chessboard? The evidence suggests that her kidnapping was a distraction, a smokescreen designed to hide an even darker purpose. You've heard it now. You can't unhear it. What would you have done then? Would you have looked beyond the surface, questioned the official story, or accepted the narrative fed to you? Because in Millersfield, as in many places, the truth is never as simple as it seems. Subscribe before this one disappears. The aftermath of the Millersfield incident left behind a fractured community, fractured in ways that words could scarcely capture. Officially, the case was closed, the files sealed, and the narrative sanitized for public consumption. Yet, beneath the surface, the whispers persisted, muted, but persistent, like the faint echo of a truth that refused to die. In the weeks that followed, a series of covert operations and quiet investigations unfolded, clandestine efforts to unearth what had been deliberately hidden. The shadow network, the clandestine agreements, the hidden figures. These questions haunted the minds of those who dared to look deeper. One of the most compelling discoveries came from a rusted, leather-bound journal found tucked away in the back of an old storage room in the sheriff's office. Its pages were filled with hurried notes, coded references, and a recurring name: Eleanor Grant. Who was she? The journal's entries hinted at a woman with influence, an insider who kept her distance from public view, but wielded power behind closed doors. Would you have trusted the official reports? Or would you have believed that someone like Eleanor Grant, with her cryptic presence, held the keys to understanding the entire operation? The journal contained a startling entry. Eleanor's plan is in motion. The target is secondary. The real objective is control. Over information, over people, over the fabric of the town itself. The handwriting was hurried, almost frantic. The phrase "control over the town" suggested a level of manipulation that extended far beyond the immediate case. Further digging revealed that Eleanor Grant had once worked as a high-level consultant for a clandestine government project, an operation that specialized in covert influence, disinformation, and strategic displacements. Her name appeared in unclassified documents related to behavioral operations, but her true role was obscured by layers of false identities and coded references. Would you have connected the dots? Or would you have dismissed her as just another shadowy figure? Meanwhile, Karen Whitmore's recovery was a fragile process. She was placed in a secure facility, her mind fractured by the trauma but her resilience evident. Her family, kept at a distance, was told only that she was receiving specialized care. But whispers among insiders suggested that her treatment involved more than just psychological therapy. Some believed that her mind was being subtly reprogrammed, her memories selectively erased or manipulated. In the quiet of her confinement, Karen's subconscious held fragments of a different reality. Voices she couldn't quite recognize, images that flickered like distant memories, and a recurring name: Eleanor. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, a new piece of evidence surfaced. An anonymous tip that led investigators to a hidden safe deposit box in a small bank in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Inside was a series of photographs, meticulously labeled, depicting Karen in various locations with a man whose face was obscured. The images suggested that her kidnapping was part of a larger series, an operation that involved multiple targets, each chosen for reasons beyond simple coercion or ransom. What was the true purpose of these transfers? Was Karen a pawn in a game of psychological control? Or was she something else entirely, a symbol, perhaps, of a much larger experiment? The investigators uncovered a pattern in the locations. The old textile mills, the abandoned motels, even the isolated farms. Each site linked by a web of coded references, all pointing toward a central node. It was as if someone had designed a map, an intricate blueprint of influence and manipulation. And then, the unthinkable happened. A series of encrypted messages was intercepted, notes from an unknown source speaking of Phase 3, the final move, and Eleanor's legacy. These messages hinted that the operation's ultimate goal was not merely kidnapping or control, but something more profound, a hidden agenda rooted in psychological, warfare, and mass influence. One message read, "The target is now the mind. Breaking free is the only way to stop the cascade." The words suggested that the entire operation was an attempt to manipulate perceptions, to subtly steer the course of the town, and perhaps the nation, through unseen forces. Would you have recognized the signs? Could you have seen the manipulation in the subtle shifts of public opinion, the carefully curated narratives, the quiet influence wielded by unseen hands? The investigation finally pointed toward a clandestine meeting held in a private conference room in Tulsa, months before the kidnapping. The attendees, individuals with deep ties to law enforcement, local government, and private intelligence firms. Their purpose, to coordinate discrete influence operations, to test and refine techniques that could sway community sentiments, obscure truths, and control narratives. One document, heavily redacted, contained a single phrase: Operation Crossroads, Phase 3, the Mind's Eye. Its ominous tone suggested that the entire operation was designed to extend beyond physical abductions, to infiltrate thoughts, to reshape perceptions. And the final, most disturbing revelation: Eleanor Grant was identified as the architect of this entire program. No longer just a name in a secret journal, she was now a shadow figure whose influence stretched into every corner of the operation. Her role was not merely as a facilitator, but as the mastermind, an invisible hand guiding each phase, each transfer, each manipulation. What would you have done then? Would you have trusted your own perceptions, or would you have questioned everything, suspecting that the reality you see is just a carefully crafted illusion? In the end, the case remained unresolved in many ways. The evidence pointed toward a network of powerful, interconnected figures, lawyers, officials, private contractors, all working in unison to keep the truth hidden. The final pages of the ongoing dossier reveal a warning. The real target is the consciousness, what they think, what they believe. Once that's under control, nothing else matters. You've heard it now. You can't unhear it. What was the real purpose behind Karen Whitmore's kidnapping? Was she a victim or a key piece in a grander scheme? Was her trauma merely a side effect of a deeper operation, one designed to test limits, influence minds, and reshape communities? Would you have looked beyond the official story? Or would you have accepted the narrative fed to the masses? This is the quiet truth, hidden beneath layers of deception, obscured by carefully crafted lies. The real story is often the one you're never meant to see. Subscribe before this one disappears into the shadows again.